I would not hesitate sending people to go learn how to meditate. And some people think they can't. I think that problem is that a lot of us have a preconceived notion of what meditation is supposed to be like. And one of the best things my teacher said to me was, he said, don't make any experience any more important than any other experience.
Welcome to a new episode of Most Memorable Journeys. Very exciting guest today. She is a best-selling author, award-winning business strategist, leadership coach, and a pioneer in emotional and energetic intelligence for women leaders. For over 30 years, she has helped entrepreneurs and professionals break through emotional blocks, clear energetic pathways, and achieve extraordinary success in both business and life. I'm reading that. That is just what it says on her website, but we are going to find out a lot more. And we are also going to talk about her latest book that just recently came out, or is it out yet? We will find out. Welcome to Most Memorable Journeys, Carla Sridevi Cohen.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It's such an honor to be on here with you. We've been friends for a while now, and it's just exciting to be involved in this with you. I really feel privileged. So thank you for having me.
Oh, it's a huge pleasure. And I forgot to mention when I introduced you, of course, you are my friend. You are actually a very good friend that I don't see much, but is close to my heart. And this is another thing. We don't need to see people every day to be good friends.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, I just know that the door's always there, and you know that too. It goes both ways. So, yeah.
So where do we begin? There is so much about you, Carla. I know you as what I introduced you. I know that you are doing all these exciting support for women. You help people break through. You help people move and grow. But I know that you did other exciting things. And I think we discussed it before we started recording, and we're going to start with it. Where does Hollywood come in?
Okay, so I went to University of California, San Diego, in La Jolla. That's where I got my BA in sociology, and I didn't know what I wanted to do, and they wanted me to stay on, and because I was already an undergraduate doing graduate courses, and they liked me and wanted me to stay on and be a professor. And I was like, done. So I didn't know what I wanted. And my husband wanted to go to Hollywood, and he wanted to be a cinematographer. And so I said, okay, well, at least you know what you want. Let's just go and I'll figure it out, And anyway, I lucked out. I got my first job at the American Film Institute, which at that time was in the Doheny Mansion, which is a very historic, very famous mansion here in Beverly Hills, very exclusive. Most people will never get a chance to see it in their lifetime. And so I started my career out of college surrounded by all these celebrities, all this excitement, filming going on around me all the time. And I helped with the directing workshop for women in the independent filmmaker program. And they hired me. I knew nothing, but the people that were in charge of hiring liked my dress and my hair. And so they thought it would be fun to have in their group. That's literally how I got it. And so while I was there, I started doing some, I was curious, right? And I was a kid. I wanted to learn, mature kid. But anyway, there was a man there at the Institute who was doing public relations for the Institute. And he started taking me on. He saw my writing, and he was like, "You're a great writer. You should be. And you've got a nice personality, And he sort of took me under his wing, and he taught me about public relations. And he didn't stop there. He opened the door for me to go into the largest international public relations firm in the world, which is at that time, well, still is Rogers and Cowan. I think they're still the largest. And I had the opportunity to work with people like Bette Midler, George Benson, Rick James. A lot of celebrities you would recognize their names. Even Michael Jackson was one of our clients, and loved it. But it was a brutal industry in a lot of ways. So I did everything. If anybody needed anything, I was in their department. Like whatever you wanted, I didn't care. I would do it. And I got opportunities that nobody will ever have in their lifetime, going to Playboy Mansion, when Hugh Hefner was still alive, and being able to play at the mansion. But anyway, so My boss, who had a reputation for not ever keeping anybody long more than 2 weeks, I ended up staying with him for a few years, and we just gelled. And the reason people didn't last with him is he wanted things done right, and I was open. I didn't have an ego really, so I just, whatever he taught me, I did it, and got very good at it. And I took on about 50% of the workload. So he was Black, and he could only go so far in the industry. And so he left to become part of another PR firm, recognizing he'd hit his, ceiling. Everybody thought that I would be promoted since I was handling 50% of the acts. I was writing the PR campaigns. I was implementing them. But instead, a man from out of nowhere was basically given the job, and they asked me to stay on and help him. And I said, no.
For you.
But it was, the interesting thing about that, Elizabeth, is I didn't have a point of reference, and I didn't, at the time, I just thought it meant I wasn't good enough. That's how I internalized that experience. It really, hit me. And my friends were all very sympathetic, and they were like, what can we do? And, there really wasn't anything to do about it. And so I was trying to quit, and then another person, very famous public relations woman, took me under her wing. It still worked, but it was like as far away from the people I had been with as possible. And her name was Ronnie Chasen. She eventually, I don't know if you ever heard the story about her, but she was murdered in Hollywood. So very tragic. But my boss that had left, he called me up and he said, look, how'd you like to be a vice president over here? I was like, okay, So I went and did that for a while, and then realized I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I started learning about story development. I really loved working with scripts, and there was another person took me under their wing and said, let me help you. You're gifted. So Doni Nelson, she was amazing, and so I worked there, and I took night school classes to improve my script writing and and I learned from the best, amazing people. And now I look back and, like in history, they're all people that people will remember in Hollywood. And in one of my night courses, I did an analysis of a book. I don't know if you ever heard of a man in Hollywood named David Begelman. He was like, I'm trying to think of his name. He was like the biggest guy behind the scenes you could ever imagine. Okay. He controlled a lot of Hollywood. And he, during the time, I don't remember the whole story now, but he did some very bad things to people. And he ripped off Cliff Robertson. I don't know if you remember who he was. He was a very iconic movie star. Yeah. But he also screwed over a lot of people. So they saw my analysis, and the teacher was like, I have a friend who's looking for a development executive, and your work is amazing. Would you be open to me opening the door? And I said, that's like my dream job. So I had an interview, hit it off great with the guy, loved him. He was like a big brother, very sarcastic, very smart. Within 6 months of me being in the job, he was fired. And they told me to take over his job. So I already had a huge staff of readers. I was working 40 hours a week. I went from 40 hours to 70 hours a week. And I ended up starting to fall asleep at work. I didn't feel right. And eventually my body I had no energy. And so I had to quit. And when I went to the doctors, they said, look, we don't know what's going on with you, but you have an elevated white blood cell count that's off the charts. And I had a constant fever. So pause. I was freaked out because it was the first time in my life that my doctor couldn't help me. My parents couldn't help me. They didn't know what was going on with me. I can look back now and I have my thoughts about it. But I ended up in bed for 2 years. And the last thing the doctor said to me was, he's like, well, we don't know what to do. So here's some antidepressants. Take these and, we think you're depressed.
There's always a pill, isn't there?
And I wasn't depressed till he said that to me. Then it was like, oh, that was like, you're giving up on me, right? So that was, I remember taking that one pill, and I very unglamorously collapsed on the toilet seat and started sobbing and just threw the rest of the bottle out. I felt just so off. It just zapped everything. And I thought, this is not my path. And, something inside of me is like, you'll find a way. It's not obvious, but you'll figure it out. So I started studying nutrition and, spirituality and, all these even though I was sleeping up more than anything else, when I was awake, I would read, and then I would go back to sleep. And up until that time, I'd been the main wage earner in our household. Like I was I supported my husband and myself, and I had no problem with that. But now I was in the place of, well, okay, you have no choice, and he had to get off his butt and get to work, which he did happily. He was great, and so. Part of what happened was one day I got invited to a transcendental meditation lecture or experience, intro night. And I went, and he started to chant the lineage of the gurus in Sanskrit that it came down from. And it was like I knew it. And my body was reacting in such a way that I'd never had anything happen like this before. Like I recognized some part of my soul was like, okay. So I ended up learning transcendental meditation, and that was the beginning of me starting to turn around. It was like the first time I felt like somebody cleaned out all the cobwebs outside of me and the inside, and I started to have a little more energy, and I just felt a little better. And then from there it became this path of me traveling all over the world and learning from different shaman and healers in the interest of trying to heal myself. I had no intention of becoming a healer, but it was like, it seemed like it was like obvious, right? Like even the woman who ran there was this like a Hogwarts Academy in the San Fernando Valley at that time, where they trained people in the spiritual arts, tarot card reading, reading jewelry. I can't think of the name of it right now. I was doing all these things. My teacher would hold up cards, and I would be able to tell her what was on the other side of the card. And I didn't know the tarot at that time at all, but it was just like, it just was coming. Like, so it seemed like, okay, that's my path. And then, so I started learning how to heal people. And in the process of healing them, I kept healing myself. And, over time, got myself back. But that experience of that drug, that was the last time I took a drug for 40 something years. Like up until my most recent knee surgery, I had not had even a aspirin.
All right, let's stop here because I have to summarize what you said. I have to give my opinion. No,
yes, please.
I'm only joking. But one thing that I take out of what you did is, if we are willing to learn, we will find somebody to teach us, I think. And you said several times that somebody took you under their wings. And I like that a lot, because many people in the world think that they know everything. They think that they know everything, and they only talk about themselves, and they talk about, my opinion is, when you don't listen to other people and only talk about yourself, you can't learn anything, because so I think that what you did, which didn't end very happily, because obviously you work too much. But I think up until you started working 70 hours, that was a fantastic learning experience. And I think for every young person who is listening to this, is the lesson out of this is always be willing to learn, always be willing to listen. Don't be arrogant and know everything.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. It's true. When you think you know everything, that's exactly, then you have now officially stopped growing, because, and I believe that's why, like when I look at you and I hear you, Elizabeth, one of the things I love about you is you are eternal youth. And part of that is you're always growing yourself. You're always working on you talk about it, but you don't talk about it, and it's obvious because, you can start after you've been on the path for a while, you can start to tell who's doing it and who isn't,
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can talk. Lots of people talk. I mean, on the internet, all we hear is talk. But I know a lot of people who are hypocrites. They don't walk their talk.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's true too. And part of that thinking that you're just talking about is, what really started to heal me, because what I had to do was I had to get in integrity with myself, right? Like I was so out of touch with me. I had no idea that I was out of integrity with myself. It wasn't like I was bad or evil or any of that stuff, but I just didn't really have enough sense of myself to know that I wasn't really allowing the full authenticity of who I am, my soul, to come out into the world, right? And I'm still discovering, but I'm just saying that became very obvious. And part of my healing was learning how to tap into myself, start to understand that this body is a communication device and it's talking to me all the time. It's talking to you, right? Your bodies and our bodies are communicating with each other, but more importantly, that your body has its own language that is instructing you all the time. If you're willing
we have to listen. We don't listen.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. Now I want to talk a little bit. Tell me a little bit about that healing journey. Where did you go? What was the most impressive experience of all the places that you went to?
Oh gosh. Well, I can tell you some of the weirdest ones.
Tell me the weird ones. I love those.
So one was so there was this thing about alchemical metal, right? I don't know. And so you had to go through like an initiation in order to get this. And so I went to this house and it was a Swami. It was a guy dressed all in orange, renunciate, long gray hair, up in the mountain canyon, like away from everybody. And, he welcomes me and I'm like, I have no idea what I'm in for, but I'm convinced I need this alchemical, thing. So I get in there and he's giving me instruction. And the first, pretty soon after I'm there, he says, okay, I'm on the floor and he's beating me with a broom. I don't know. I think it was opening up chakras or something, and everybody else would have thought it was abuse, but it really wasn't. It was just like, but he was banging me pretty hard with this broom to get, I don't know, whatever out that he sensed. Right. And then he goes, we have to do that so that you can go do the next part, because the next part is probably the most important. And I'm like, okay, well, what's that going to be? He goes, just sit down. And he starts to bring over all these snakes and he's putting snakes around me, on me. Okay. Now it was really interesting because my mind wanted to go into fear, right? Because never been around snakes. I don't know anything. But what I realized really quickly was they were lovely and they were soft and they were very gentle and they weren't doing anything, with any maliciousness. And as a matter of fact, I was like, oh, this is kind of nice. Like I felt like they were trying to communicate something to me I didn't consciously understand, right? So that was a pretty weird one, getting banged on.
Definitely sounds weird.
And I don't know what really happened to me. I wore that stuff religiously for a long time. I don't know what it did, but I trusted that it was gonna help me because I'd gotten some guidance. I think another funny, strange one was this. His name was Pac Giro, and he lived in the jungles in Bali. And I don't know how. There's no electricity or whatever, but these people back in the jungle somehow have a television. I don't know how they. Yeah, somehow, right. So, but anyway, I got escorted back through the jungle into this, I don't know. I could never find my way back. So I'm just praying that, the guidance we got to get healed by this guy is like for real. So you go in, I walked into his hut, and in the middle of the hut, there's this huge ant column, like an ant house. I don't know. And I don't know what you call it. And I And he has this big ring on his finger and he's clacking every time. And he's twisting his wrist and making this sound, clack, 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 clack. And then out of nowhere, all of these ants started coming from every direction, toward me and the ant house. Okay, now ants I don't like. I really don't. I've been stung by fire ant. I've had some not good experience. Anyway, but it was part of the deal. So they were his guides. So they came in, and then he had me lay down on a, like, it's like a very primitive table, and he did this weird healing work with my toes. And extremely painful, like you scream. It's not like, oh, that looks so nice. It's like, this is anybody who would hear you would be terrorized and not want to go there. But what happened for me afterwards was I felt this massive energetic, like I expanded hugely, from the experience. And people were asking me, like, because I knew other people over there. There were other healers that had come over at the same time. I actually was teaching a workshop in the jungle there. That's part of what happened. But I was one of other teachers. There were other teachers leading the body work. I was teaching body work. And they're like, well, what do you think? Would you recommend that I go to him? And I'm like, well, it's not exactly a pleasant experience, like it comes down to how bad do you want it? Let me just put it this way. I'm not going to go back a second time, But the energy was phenomenal. Like it was, I could really feel the presence of the Divine Mother within his hut. Like something was going on there. But it's hard to put that into words. But again, there was this tremendous expansion, and I could feel I was surrounded and embraced by a kind of a very loving presence in there. So those are some of the weirder ones.
Amazing. Now, for those people who are listening, those who cannot go to the jungle, who don't have the opportunity to go to places where you have been, for example, where I have been, what do you tell them? What can they do themselves, by themselves, or who can help them where they are in order to expand and to grow? What is your suggestion for somebody who says, I don't, like I'm where Carla was after the 2 years of not feeling well. How do I begin?
I would not hesitate sending people to go learn how to meditate. And some people think they can't. I think that problem is that a lot of us have a preconceived notion of what meditation is supposed to be like. And one of the best things my teacher said to me was, he said, don't make any experience any more important than any other experience. So that you're not looking for that next high when you meditate. It's just because sometimes you're going to get blasted and you're going to feel amazing. And then there's times when your brain, you get to just watch your thoughts going through. And I think that's one of the gifts of meditation, is to go, oh, wow, look at my mind going crazy when I really, like, I'm not those thoughts, right? You get to start to recognize that you're not that, right? But being not that helps you see more of what you are, if that makes sense. But I would say meditation, for sure. And you have to find the form that works for you. I did transcendental meditation, and I swear by it. These years, I think it's a lot more money than what I paid at the time, but I definitely would send somebody. I also recommend that people learn breath work. Like I became certified in a couple of different breath modalities. At the time, one was called rebirthing. It doesn't exist in the same form, and now they call it something else. And I also did something called vivation. But getting in touch with the breath and being, I'm just going to say, if you're able to sense things in your body, like that you have a feeling, even if it's a pain, whatever it is, a pain is a signal that you're having an emotion and a thought in there, really. And so breathing into that place where you feel the sensation and breathing into it and being willing to touch it and being willing to see where it goes, as opposed to trying to make it heal or go away, can be very, very powerful and can teach you a lot about yourself. So that's what I would recommend. I think body work is also, there are people, like I was trained in, there's different versions. There's a Dallas style raindrop, which is an essential oil treatment. Very powerful for people, because oils can, good quality oils can really do amazing things to help you start to open up as well. So.
Yeah. And I totally agree with all of them. And I think especially coming back to the meditation bit, people don't people give up too easily, I think, but the mind is a muscle. That the mind is a muscle like our arm or our leg, and it's not going to happen in one go. Sometimes I ask people, do you meditate? And they say, yeah, I tried that once, but it didn't work. That's not how it works. You have to try it a few times and you have to
Yeah.
keep going. And I think exactly what you said. Sometimes you feel absolutely nothing, but like just sitting down for 5, 10. And another thing that people usually do is they try too long. I think starting should be short.
Yeah.
It's because otherwise they give up too easily. That's one thing. I totally agree with you. I fully believe in meditation. And of course, the breath work, because most stress and anxiety is caused by breathing wrong, just breathing into your chest instead of breathing all the way to your belly.
Yeah. That's
That
very true.
alone can make you feel better. I
Yeah. It
totally
can change.
agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
listening to
it's
your body, intuition, we've given up, we've lost. I think many people with all the noise around us have lost their intuition.
Because let's here's another way to look at that too, which is like who trains. There's no book. Like when you come out, you're born. Nobody goes, okay, here's what you should learn how to tap into your emotions. You should learn how to listen to your body. Nobody does that, right? So this is why the world is so kind of messed up. Because people don't learn to take personal responsibility for their feelings, for their emotions, for their circumstance in their life. And I've had good times, like a lot of people, and I've had not so what I would call not so good times. But the question is not whether you're suffering. The question is, what are you taking away as a lesson or learning as a result of the suffering, or what are you learning about yourself that maybe you're not addressing? Because ultimately, it's about what are the purpose. One of the purposes of meditation is to get to see that who you're not. The other purpose in my mind is to raise your frequency or vibratory frequency, because if we stay in the lower frequencies, it's hard to lift ourselves out of the circumstances that we're in, right? So we have to make an effort. I think that's one of the reasons we're put here on the planet, I don't know, this is, high school or whatever, and we're going through training so that we can, get up to those higher frequencies and be a true conscious creator with what's going on in our world. And it's hard sometimes, right, to take responsibility. I created this. Who wants to?
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem in general in this world. It's always there's always somebody to blame or something to blame, but of course that doesn't solve the problem. It's being on the passenger seat, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know. I think so. But the thing about breathing is, like you were talking about, especially if you go down into the lower part of the body, like I had the experience during one of I did a lot of rebirthing. So I did it dry, like on the ground, and then I did underwater rebirthing, where you do a snorkel and you're like in a hot tub, right? And you're breathing in and going through all your emotions in the water. And it's not like you're trying to experience your birth. You're just feeling, breathing into the different sensations in your body. And sometimes birth things will come up, birth memories. And I had a full recall of my birth, which was very interesting. I remembered the point when they put my mom got her anesthesia and how I was trying to get out. And I felt like I couldn't get out. It trying to slow down. It slowed me down. But the point was that as a result of that experience, I was able to heal my first breath that I took. And we don't realize how much that first breath, when it's not healed, impacts us in the other ways in our life. And that when you do heal it, for example, being people who have problems with being in MRIs and they feel claustrophobic, or they can't scuba because they go down and they get freaked out. It's like if you can heal that original breath, you don't have those kind of reactions anymore, because it's all coming from that first breath that we took.
I love this. I'm totally with you now. Do you, because we're already far in, we will have to talk about what you do and we have to talk about the book. But do you, because I have people on my podcast listening from, I don't know, I think 120 countries or something. You are in California. Do you teach and help and work online?
Yes. And actually, Pretty much all of my clients are online now these days. It's just, even when people ask me, can I come over? I'm like, well, no. For a couple of reasons, but I think it's easier. People don't have to leave their home. They can be comfortable. We can do the work together, and it's phenomenally effective over. You don't have to be in person. It's nice to be in person with people. I love teaching groups or being in, facilitating groups. But so the work can be done one-to-one over Zoom. Yeah.
And I do hypnotherapy on Zoom. It works. I was a bit skeptical at the beginning, but then I realized that it's more or less the same thing. Sometimes, as you say, even better, because the people are in the comfort of their home. So that it kind of works better.
Yeah.
You're also a speaker. How would you, what is your dream stage?
My dream stage. Well, it's so funny because I do see myself on bigger stages, but I've never been that specific. I just really, at this point, I'm just looking to get into more, international communities that are affecting or impacting what's going on around the earth in terms of sustainability, or wanting to, I don't know, create more peace, like, a UN kind of thing, or those kind of places where I can help create peace within a smaller group that's going to spread out and impact on a larger scale. And then ultimately, maybe, some bigger. I mean, I'd love to be on Oprah someday, especially with my new book. I'd love Oprah. I'd love Oprah to read my new book.
Are you listening, Oprah? Or somebody who knows her.
Yeah, if anybody knows her, please. Yeah. So, I think that's the dream. I love travel. I love meeting people. I specifically love working with, I don't have a problem with men. I'm very happily married, and I know a lot of wonderful men. But when I primarily, a lot of my work is directed at females, because I think we have more, we're more ready to look at what's going on with us and try to get out from under it. I saw that was part of my journey of healing, was recognizing all the conditioning that I'd accepted as fact. And now it's like, it comes to mind, is it true? Is it really true? Like when you believe something, and
we're told a lot of stories, aren't we? Conditioning is a big deal, and that's where all the work is. It's where we need to go back and say, hey, that's not true. Is it true? It's not true.
Yeah, it's not true. And why do I believe it's true? And then what would happen if what would happen if I did the opposite of it? Like I was entering into a program, and it was just this moment, but it really caught me. And I said, it was a very big investment to be in this program. And I said, well, what if it doesn't work? And she said, well, what if it does? I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good way to think about it.
Yes. It's so true. There's this meme. What is it? What if I fail? And then the answer is, what if you fly?
Yeah. What if you succeed? What if it turns out better than what you think? It's so interesting, because we'll say no to things just so that we can remain safe, which is an illusion.
Our mind wants to keep us in the comfort zone. That's all. It locks us in there. Now, Radiant Revolution, the rise of feminine wisdom and the future of leadership.
Yes.
This is your book. This is the title of your book. What is it about? Tell us.
So the basis, as I've grown more and more into my particular passion for this particular phase of my life, it's really about creating, helping women be in what I call energetic coherence, and being okay with that. Like we try to bend and twist ourselves into a world that has been organized and set up by men's rules, and we are, we can scream no all we want, but if you look at it, we didn't have a whole lot to do with how these patriarchies got set up. We really didn't. And we've come a long way, but there's still so much to learn. And so the idea is to have a different approach to how you lead. And so looking at things like coming into a room, and instead of jumping right into the task that has to be done, taking a moment to like settle in and be in your body before you lead the group, first of all. Being in energetic coherence means looking around and seeing, what's going on in the room? What's the feeling when you walk in there? Is everybody already depressed before you even start the meeting? Maybe that's something we should start talking about before we jump into whatever our subject is. So I think it's about that, but it's also about, you've heard these words, but it's also about inclusion and not shutting people down for having opinions that are not the same as yours. Inviting that mixture of, all the different, if you think of human beings as all different instruments, some of us are violins, some of us are cellos, some of us are drums, right? And how different an orchestra sounds when it's one trumpet playing versus the entire symphony going, and trying to create that kind of an energetic within an organization. That's a female model, in my opinion. So that's really where I'm going with this. My work that I do with individuals is primarily about, helping women close that gap between, what they are, their skills and all their knowledge and all their wisdom and what they're getting paid, so that those two things are in alignment. And this work is all about alignment. The book is all about alignment. Like, how do you create alignment in an organization? Because if we can stop and question instead of diving in and expecting things to be the same way they've always been, then we might create some really good change that can help everybody.
Where can people get it?
It's on Amazon. But if you want to be part of my book launch, you can go to getcarlasbook.com, and Carla is spelled with a C. You'll get some special emails that let you know, like we're actually gonna do a very special day on February 25th. That's my birthday, and we're gonna do a launch. But if you don't want to wait, that's okay. Get on Amazon now and buy it, and please give reviews, hopefully good ones, because that's what's really going to help drive this. I would love to see every organization at least read it. It's only 99 pages. I mean, you can do this on a short flight.
But you see, this is the whole idea. Now I'm going to do some self-promotion, but I have a book called The Soul Kit, and it's a very small book.
I loved your book. Yeah.
My book is not... These books, I don't know about yours, but it doesn't have to be academically studied, and I don't know what. It has to touch your soul. It has to do something inside of you. And from what I understand, what your book is, that's exactly what it does. And it may be a small book, it may be read very quickly, but people will probably pick it up again.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. And you can leave it in your airline pocket so somebody else will pick up the book and read it too, But just saying.
You're just trying to sell more here. You're trying to make people forget it on the plane or leave it on purpose on the plane so they have to buy another one.
Well, I already have one bestseller. I'd like to make this one a second one. So
good strategy, Carla. So excellent. So everybody, Radiant Revolution, it's on Amazon. Get in touch with Carla. We're coming to the end. Any last words? Did we forget anything that you wanted to talk about?
I think really just my parting words is just to, if you see yourself wanting to limit yourself, in fighting for your limitations, take a moment and figure out who's really talking in that moment, and see if you can switch to not fighting for your limitations, but fighting for the you that's in there that really wants to get out and touch the world, because every single person has a message to deliver to the world and something important. And we don't often recognize that within ourselves. So I think that would be my parting words. I'd love to get to connect with everybody that's listening to this. If you're out there, you can also connect with me, obviously, on social media. So I'd love to connect with you, however, but do read the book, do spread the word. And again, thank you so much, Elizabeth, for having me on. It's really an honor.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for being on Most Memorable Journeys, Carla Cohen. If you enjoy my podcast, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. You will find all the information in the show notes.